It's going to be scissors, paper, rock, and I'm just indicating that here is going to be a computer player. So you just make your selection. So we're going to make a selection, and you lose because we chose paper, and you can see they chose scissors, and scissors beats paper. So is to create a new Xcode project as an iOS app, and I'm not going to use core data or anything. Let's call this scissors, paper, rock, or SPR for short. And I'm just going to save this on my desktop. Now I'm going to do everything in the one view, just because this is a nice simple app. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to start the simulator, and I'm going to create some variables that are going to hold bits and pieces. So the first thing I'm going to need is an enum, or an enumeration, and I'm going to call this choices. And this is going to be string, and I'm going to need to iterate or choose each one, so I'm going to say case iterable as well. And I'm going to say scissors is going to be the scissors emoji. And then paper is going to be the paper emoji. Let's use this one. And then rock is going to be the rock emoji. So I've got my choices. You can add more as well. Just keep in mind, bullet is going to be choices dot all cases. And I'm just going to start with the first one for now. So this is how we can use all cases, is because we can iterate across all of them. It changes this into an array or a list for me. So the next thing I'm going to need is the game outcome. And I'm just going to leave that blank for now. And then I'm going to need a wins, and a round, and a show alert, so you remember that it pops up once the user has made a choice. And we show our computer choice only once the player has made their decision as well. Now, for my body, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to divide this down into like the size of the screen. I'm going to kind of work with the screen as a percentage. And so I'm going to start off with our geometry reader. Whoops. Geometry reader, I'm going to call this Geo for short. And then I can use things like the screen size. So the first thing I'm going to do is the computer. And then we're going to do the player a bit later. So the computer is going to be a vertical stack. If it's not the case that we show computer choice, we put in our text with our computer emoji. Let's go robot. And I want it nice and big. Dot system. Size, let's go 100. So it's like going to be really nice and large. And then let's actually put this in a vertical stack as well. Because that way our computer and our player are all together. And then if we are showing the computer choice, then we're going to have the text, computer choice, raw values, because I want the scissors, paper, or rock. And again, font size system 100. Now, that computer stack, I'm actually going to make it frame width height. So the width is going to be the size of the width of the screen. That's going to make it full width. The height is going to be the height of the screen, but oh yeah, we can make it the height of the screen, but just half of it. So it's going to occupy the top half, and I don't really need an alignment. So now when we have a look at our preview, it's occupying half the screen, and then the player can occupy the other half of the screen in a very similar way. So we're going to have our second vertical stack at the moment. We're going to copy and paste this for the player. But I'm basically going to get rid of like this whole if statement. And I'm going to put in some text that says, make your selection. Selection. Let's put some padding around it. And let's put a horizontal stack. Let's put some spacing in. And this is going to be all of the options that we have. Now for each, I'm going to use all of my choices, dot all cases. The ID is just going to be self. Now we're going to call this an option. I'm going to have a button. And it's going to have the text, text choice dot, we'll call this an option. Option dot raw value. And so that make your selection, choices, all cases. And so you can see them down here now. So that's looking pretty good. The only thing is it's quite a bit smaller than what I would like. So I'm going to do a size. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the geometry reader to set the size of our options. So the .font.system.size, system size like that is going to be the geo.size.width. And we're going to divide that by our how many options we have, right? So we're going to divide that by our choices.allcases.count. And it's going to make it as big as it can, but it's basically going to, so we've got 3 cases, so we're going to divide by 3. Geo.size.width. Oh, and this needs to be a CG float for this to work. There we go, so we're dividing by 3, but you can see it's cut off slightly. That's because our spacing is of 20, so if we had a spacing of 0, then it would work really nicely. And now, if you put more options in our list up here, it will still be it'll still kind of size it as big as it can, but fitting within the screen. Okay, so now we've got to figure out what happens when the player presses a button. So the first thing I'm going to do is start the round when you press one of the buttons. This action here. Start the round. So this is going to be round +1. And then we're going to get a computer choice or generate a computer choice. Because at the moment we're just using the first item on the list, which is not really that, it's very predictable. So we're going to create an index. And it's going to be a random number between 0 and the count of how many choices we have. So we've got 3 cases, 3 choices, so it's going to become 0, between 0 and we actually want less than 1 less. And the reason why is because if we have choice 3, so this is item 0, this is item 1, this is item 2, so we want between 0 and 2 technically. So that's why we're taking 1 off our count. And then what we can do is we can go, we can assign our computer choice to our choices, all cases, and I can just assign our index, like that. So the last step we need to do is then we want to show our computer choice. When the player has pressed the button, we basically choose it and we set it to true. That way, you will actually see what the computer has chosen. So let's see what happens. So you click on it, and it shows the computer's choice and our choice. I'm just going to hit stop again. Now that looks pretty good. So the next thing that we're going to have to do is to check if we've won. And let's call this function checkWin. And we're going to need to know what our player choice is. As a option. And that player choice is basically whatever button they've clicked on. Now this check win doesn't exist yet, so let's create a function called check win, which just takes the player choice as a string, as actually a choice. Oops, we don't need that B. And so now we're going to check if we won or not. That's pretty good. So the last thing I need to do is in the player stack still, we've got our choices, our H stack. I'm going to put another horizontal stack below. It's going to have a spacer, and a spacer. Whoops. And between these two, I'm going to put the text wins, and I'm going to pull in the wins and our round. Like that. So we'll have wins and round down the bottom as well. That's pretty much it. So then we're going to have an alert that pops up once the player has clicked on something. So that's going to go outside of the geometry reader. And I'm going to have the where are we? We need the one with the title in it. Let's just make this one. U, and then the game outcome, win or lose. Outcome. And then I'm going to say is presented is going to be depending on the show alert that we've created. And the content of the alert is going to have a button, which actually is going to say play again. And the role is going to be to cancel the alert. And when you tap on the button, I'm going to then show computer choice back to false. So we're going to hide our computer choice again, and it's going to go back to this computer. Now our last step we're going to do is check if we've won or not. So we're going to switch on our player choices. And if we chose scissors, let's start with scissors. If the computer choice is equal to scissors, then it's a draw, right? So the game outcome becomes draw. If the computer chose paper and we chose scissors, then we win. And then otherwise, we lose. So we can basically copy this each time for paper and for rock, and we've just got to consider, or we've got to set the rules. So when we choose paper, if the computer chooses scissors, then we lose. If we both choose paper, we draw. And then if the computer chooses scissors, paper, or rock, so rock, then and we choose paper, then we win. The last one, whoops, this needs to be a double equals, because we're checking. Okay, so with the rock, if we choose scissors, then we lose. Sorry, if we choose rock and the computer chooses scissors, then we win, because rock beats scissors. If we choose rock and the computer chooses paper, then we lose. And then otherwise we draw if we both got the same choice. Now, in each case when we win, we actually have to assign wins +1. But only in the case when we win. The last thing I'm going to do is, no matter what player choice is made, I'm going to close this switch statement. I'm going to add one to the round. Actually no, because we're already adding one to the round when we tap on one of these values. And then we want to show the alert if we win, lose, or tie. So let's see what happens. scissors to start with, and you can see they chose paper, so we win. I'll play again. I've got 1 win, 1 round. When I choose paper this time, and I've lost because they've chosen scissors. So you can see it's all working fine.